This is Retirement Keys with Anthony Congemi from Crescent City Retirement Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Anthony provides his clients and prospects with the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is Retirement Keys with your host, Anthony Congemi.
All right, welcome to another show of Retirement Keys. My name's Anthony Congemi. I'm so happy to be with you here this morning. And we have our fabulous co-host, Mr. Tony Shore, with us this morning. We really appreciate, Tony, you being with us. We honestly, we could do the show, I guess, without you, but it wouldn't have nearly the quality that it has, and mainly because, of your experience with doing retirement planning shows all over the country. You just bring a wealth of input into the show, and we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Anthony. That's so nice. Your introductions get nicer and nicer. I don't know, my ego, I won't be able to fit my head through the door to the studio anymore if you keep building me up like this. But I am so excited to be here. And, I just want to clarify for our listeners, Anthony, you're the host of the show. This is your show. You're the financial professional. But I do know a lot of the questions to ask because they're questions my wife and I have had in planning. I mean, I'm in my 50s, so I've gone through this, and I'm at the point in my life where, every day of investing or working or planning with my finances counts toward a more successful retirement. And that's why I know that you do what you do to help your clients out with finances, whether they're young or getting ready to retire or in retirement, to make sure that they stay on the right path and don't make costly mistakes. And so I think this is great. I'm excited about the show. And Anthony, just great to talk to you. How have you been? You've been really busy. This is a busy time of year, I guess, for financial planning, isn't it?
It is, Tony. I mean, all this, end of the year planning, making sure that all of your, ducks are in a row, that you've gotten everything buttoned up. What it is, ultimately, Tony, is a lot of the things that can be done prior to December the 31st, right? After that time, then they, a lot of the opportunities may not be available, right? So, yeah, end of the year planning is real important, and reviewing your retirement plan. I say this a lot, and I mean it sincerely. When you put a retirement plan together, and that's half of it. The other half is monitoring, maintaining, and adjusting the plan as you march along in retirement. Tax laws change, estate planning laws change, investment strategies change, your, risk tolerance changes. All when you retire and you're going to live 25, 30 years in retirement, you've got to expect that there'll be changes along the way. And so having those regular visits with your retirement planner and making sure that your plan is up to date and maintaining what it needs to is critical. And so today's show is going to be about that, and really just talking about your plan and staying on track, and kind of that end of the year, if you will, some of the things that are real important to be looking at, at the end of any calendar year, really.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a good, I think, show to really kind of bullet point and talk about what some of those things are.
Right. Basically, year-end financial planning tips, or a financial checklist of things that you really need to take a look at before the end of the year. This isn't
Correct.
something you do, I'll wait until the end of the year or January 1 to look at these things then. No. The reason we're doing the show today, right, is because now is the time. This is it. So What's the first thing on our year-end planning checklist?
Yeah, so let me go on and say that this planning checklist that we are going to go over this morning for our listeners this morning, we have available in a PDF. So we're happy to send you this checklist so you'll have all of this in, in a PDF format. But the first point on our end of the year checklist, Tony, would be making sure you've taken your required minimum distributions or RMDs for the year. Failing to take your RMDs can result in a penalty. So that's the first point on our checklist. And what's real important about this is, as you know, when you get to a certain age, you have to take what's called required minimum distributions. And this is all for your pre-tax qualified plans that you have not paid taxes on those funds. Now, in a Roth, of course, Roth IRA, Roth 401k, there are no RMDs required. But on the pre-tax qualified plans that have not been taxed, if you meet the age requirement, and that's going to be different depending on when you were born. So that part we would need to, make sure we know what year your RMDs are available that have to be taken. But nevertheless, if you don't do it correctly, there's a 25% penalty to the IRS if it's not done by December 31st. So it's a pretty stiff penalty if the RMDs aren't done correctly. And typically people will have retirement accounts in various places. Might have an old 401k or 403b or IRAs at multiple banks or investment firms or brokerage firms. But really coordinating those retirement plans, Tony, and making sure that the RMDs are being satisfied is really certainly an end of the year piece that needs to take place, Tony.
Yeah, there you go. And I would say you've got to look at those. Obviously, you're looking at a 25% penalty if you don't submit your RMDs on time, and that's just huge. Plus, you'd have to pay. You not only would have to pay taxes on the amount, but pay the 25% on top of it, in addition to whatever the minimum distribution amount is. So. Yeah, that's a good one. And I can see why that's first on the list. That's something that, if you're older and already in retirement, that's something you've got to look at. And of course, your retirement age, anytime after between 70 and a half and 73 years old now, you have to send those RMDs in. And I know that's something your office helps coordinate for your clients. If our listeners have questions about that, they can give your office a call. So what's next on the list?
Yeah. So what's next on the list, Tony, is reviewing your tax withholding. If you've had a big event this year, like a wedding or a divorce, or and you want to make some changes to your tax withholding. So, what'll happen from time to time is there'll be, an event that'll take place throughout the year. Somebody might have sold a piece of property or a piece of real estate, or might have taken a big withdrawal, like we mentioned, for a wedding, or maybe there was a divorce and they had to split some assets, or maybe some bonds came due and they sold a bunch of bonds and they had this influx of income. Well, that's real important to allow for if that took place throughout the year. If there was some event that took place where there was going to be some additional income that isn't normal, normal from year to year. It's not a model year, if you will, on income. And maybe adjusting the tax withholding, if you will, to offset that income could be key, because if we don't have enough in by the end of the year, there could be, penalties to pay and everything else. So really looking at the income from the previous year and see if there was any, big events or special events that took place that may have had you pull and exceed, the income limits that you had in the past, we may want to look at that and make sure that we have the withholding set properly.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. And you want to look at your taxes before the end of the year. People think I've got until April 16th or 15th, whenever it is, to worry about taxes. But no, if you want to minimize your tax burden for the year that you'll owe, now is the time to look at where you're at. And if you want to plan for better tax situations in the future, it's best to do so before the end of the year, right?
Absolutely. Definitely better to do before the end of the year, can avoid penalties, avoid interest. And, the other thing too, Tony, a lot of times when people are pulling money out for certain things, like we mentioned, a big wedding or
Sure.
even purchasing a car, want to make a car purchase and want to pull some money out, being that it's so close to the end of the year, a lot of times it'll make sense to pull a big chunk of money out prior to the year close, and then really just within the first week, if you will, in January of 2024, pull the additional income out where the income doesn't spike so high in the previous year. Or in the current year, if you will. So in other words, if we still have room in our tax bracket, we may want to fill up the bracket. But if we're going to go over in that tax bracket and we have time for that second, chunk of funds, let's say to pay off a car or a wedding or whatever it might be, a lot of times, especially being so close to the end of the year, a lot of times it does make sense to pull the funds out within the two tax years, and really can go a long way in minimizing the overall tax burden on that money. It could even avoid some, additional costs to Medicare, IRMA, income-related Medicare adjustments, and all the rest of it. So a big chunk of income that comes in all in one tax year could, potentially cost more than it needs to without really planning it out properly.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, and you've already talked about RMDs and reviewing those tax withholdings before the end of the year. What's next on our year-end financial checklist?
So the next is reviewing insurance policies, going over your home and auto and life insurance and annuities to ensure they'll continue to meet your needs in the future. You may also be able to find better deals at the end of the year. As these insurance policies, especially your homeowners policies, are coming due, and life insurance premiums. I just had a conversation with a potential client earlier, and my goodness, the premiums on this policy is around $60,000 a year. It's a big life insurance policy, and he was asking questions about it and all of the various options and benefits. You'd be surprised, especially with all of your insurance policies, the different options that may be available to you, even within that policy or within the same company. And if you know what questions to ask, and you can really, drill down on the questions to make sure that you understand all of the nuances and options available, that can go a long way, Tony. So this whole idea of reviewing your insurance policies, and so many people from year to year, they just pay their premium. The premium comes in and they just pay it, but they're not, a lot of times, not really reviewing the policy they have with the company they're with, or making good, honest comparisons with other companies that are out there. So it's really a good idea, Tony. You can save thousands of dollars, by just simply reviewing those policies. And we do that, Tony, for our clients. We have a review checklist, and we'll go right down that checklist and make sure that our client knows everything there is to know about that policy to make good, informed decisions.
Yeah, that's huge. And I know a lot of people get into insurance policies and then forget about them or don't review them on a yearly basis. And they may have policies they don't need. They may be overpaying for coverage they don't need. They may be underinsured and not have the coverage they need. So I think insurance policies, whether it's life insurance, home, auto, it's good to look at those things. And I know that's something you help people with as far as life insurance policies, or if they have annuities, they might be in things that they don't need.
That's
And
right,
so,
Tony. And
yeah.
let me just say before we jump to the next point, I don't want to. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention beneficiary designations. I can't tell you, and you'd be surprised. I'm certainly surprised at how many times throughout the year we will what learn of a prospective client or pass away, and their beneficiary designations weren't updated on their life insurance policies or their annuities, and the wrong people get the proceeds, or the people that they didn't have intended. Maybe some things had changed. Maybe they'd gone through a divorce, or there was a death, or something along those lines. And without updating those beneficiary designations, a lot of those assets can go to the I'm gonna say the wrong people, but the people that really it wasn't intended to go to, and it just wasn't simply updated. I mean, I ran into one literally last week where a gentleman passed away. He was not a client of ours, but actually the lady that I was working with is a client of ours. And anyway, this gentleman had in his will that he specifically wanted this retirement account to go to his, kids, to his beneficiaries, in his will, but the beneficiary form had it going somewhere else, and it was not
Oh,
updated. When the
oh
attorney
no.
did the will, and in my mind, it was really the attorney that should have, seen to that, because when the attorney did the will, they knew specifically, because this asset was named in the will, that this was to go, in one direction, but the beneficiary form within the asset was had it going somewhere else. And guess what trumps the will and trumps succession in Louisiana is the beneficiary form. That
Yeah.
asset didn't go through success. It went straight to that,
Yeah.
you know.
In almost
So
every case
yeah,
all across the United States, the beneficiary designation trumps, and no matter what you say, where it should go in a will.
yeah,
If it's designated in the contract under a beneficiary designation, that takes precedent. And
right.
case after case, it's went all the way to the Supreme Court, and they always rule on the side of the beneficiary designation. And so I'm glad you brought that up, Anthony, and you've pointed that out before. That's the reason I know that. That's something a lot of people don't think about, but I'm glad you mentioned it's perfect for a year-end financial checklist. Check those beneficiary designations. They
Please.
should be checked and updated on a yearly basis.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
So
I think
number
that's important.
four. So very good, Tony. So number four, round up your charitable contributions. Make a list of all the donations you've made throughout the year. You'll want this during tax season. So any contributions you have made, certainly you want to make sure you have all of that together. One of the things that I'll just mention about charitable contributions that I think is, since the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act uh, has was passed, this is something that has become more prevalent, and that is that the standard deduction has increased considerably, and so a lot of times, a lot of these, a lot of your tax returns you'll see today, the uh, the participants will be taking a standard deduction, right? And so some charitable contributions your tax preparer really can't use because you're taking a standard deduction. But one of the things that we see a lot of today, we kind of piggybacking off of the required minimum distributions, with these required minimum distributions, these RMDs, of course you're forced to take so much out of your retirement accounts, right? And of course that's taxable income. But there's a little tax charitable gifting, they call them qualified charitable distributions, or CDs where you can send your RMD directly, or a portion of your RMD directly to the charity, where if you were giving the charitable contribution, if you're in a situation where you can't use it as a write-off because you're taking a standard deduction, if you send it directly from the retirement plan and do a charitable contribution directly to the charity, then it's not reported as, it satisfies your RMD obligation, but it's not reported as income on your tax return. So when you start talking about charitable contributions, and again, one size doesn't fit all, but looking at your charitable contributions and making sure that you're getting all the benefit that you can be getting is certainly a big part of end of the year planning.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. And that's huge. And the year-end planning is so important, and you're just illustrating that point after point here, Anthony. Well, let's take a minute to let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you.
Absolutely. So CrescentCityRetirement.com is our website address. All of our radio shows are archived there. We have a great piece, a PDF on the 20 questions we feel everyone should ask before retirement and in retirement. So we'd love to send you that piece. We really think a lot about those 20 questions, because we think that a lot of times people just don't know what are the best questions, what questions they should be asking. And obviously there would maybe more than 20 questions, but we really spend a lot of time thinking about, over 25 years of retirement planning, what are some of the key questions we feel everyone should be asking. So we have that on the website. And, as far as getting a second opinion, we'd love to offer that to our listeners. And we've done that over the years, and people have appreciated that and taken advantage of that. So I do have a special offer. So if you're listening and you have a retirement plan, or you would like to get a second opinion on your retirement plan, we'd like you to take advantage of this offer.
Well, yeah, that sounds great. This is a great checklist. What's next on the year-end checklist?
Number 7, working on building alternative income streams. Are there other ways you can earn money as you transition into retirement? When we talk about retirement planning, we'd be, income planning is really a foundational piece. Tony, we talk about the 5, keys to a stress-free retirement. So estate and legacy planning, investments, healthcare, taxes, these are all critical. But the foundation to any retirement plan is going to be income planning. And so this key here, talking about working on building alternative income streams, it's that mailbox money, Tony, or that structured income in retirement. The number one thing that people give up when they stop working is their income. Certainly they retire, they enjoy their retirement, they transition into retirement, and they get their time, right? They get their time back, which is such a huge benefit, right? That's the point, that you can let go of the work and transition into this retirement lifestyle. But the number one thing that you're giving up when you quit working, obviously, is your regular paycheck. And so making sure that you have structured income streams that are coming in the door month in and month out, that are not subject to the stock market or interest rates. Structured income, Tony, is so important to have inside of your retirement plan.
Yeah, it is. Well, guess what, Anthony? We're out of time. It flew by. I know there's even more on this checklist, but if our listeners want to get a copy, all they have to do is get a hold of your office, and they'll send out the PDF. I know you have the 20 questions PDF, the 20 most important questions you need to ask to make sure you're ready for retirement, and this year-end planning checklist. How can they get those?
Absolutely. So I would say, please, if you're listening, and these 2 PDF reports, the 20 questions that we should all be asking in retirement and prior to retirement, and this year-end planning checklist really is going to be a great addition to your to your research in retirement planning. And so we just encourage you to ask for it. All you have to do is go to crescentcityretirement.com, fill out a little form that says, yes, I'd like these PDFs, and we're going to shoot them right to you. You'll have them in your archives. You'll have them to refer to. And, we encourage you to do it. It's especially now with this year-end planning, you don't want to miss things. And, we've talked to so many people in January and people that we meet, new people that might come to one of our workshops or one of our community events and say, doggone it, if I would have just known that, prior to the end of the year, I could have done that. It could have saved me, thousands of dollars in my taxes. Don't let that be you. Get the planning, end of the year planning checklist, and make sure that you have all of your ducks in a row before December 31st.
Sounds good. Well, Anthony, thank you so much. And listeners, thanks for tuning in. That does it for today's episode of Retirement Keys with our host, Anthony Congemi. Thank you for listening to Retirement Keys. Don't pay too much for taxes or retire without a sound income plan. For more information, please contact Anthony Congemi at Crescent City Retirement Group. Call 504-828-2171 or visit the website at crescentcityretirement.com.
All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Federal Medicare Program, or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.